Welcome back. I think we now have all the basics that we need to start developing our clicks per second tester. We've done a bit of HTML, we know how to style it with CSS, and we know how to write code using JavaScript. So let's begin. Let's go back to File Explorer. So again, File Explorer, let's select that. Then go to Documents and find your LTC Learn to Code folder. And you should have your game and game HTML and game CSS files. And the first thing I want to do is I want you to create a new folder. Right click, say new folder, and we're going to call it CPS. Sorry, CPS, clicks per second. Okay, so go ahead, do that. Again, right click, new folder. Do that and come back when you're ready. Then what I would like you to do is select game CSS, right click, copy, then go into your CPS file, right click, paste. So you create a copy of the file. And do the same thing for the other file. So we copied the CSS, so let's copy the HTML, right click, copy, paste. So now we have these two files here. Next, I want you to rename them. So right click, rename, and call it CPS, clicks per second. Now I want you to open both of the files with Visual Studio. Open with Visual Studio. And I also want you to open cps.html in Microsoft Edge. And when you do that, from the previous lectures, we have this warning, you have a virus, etc., etc. We can obviously ignore that. And when you open this, go ahead, do that, and let me know. Come back when you're done. It should look ugly the way I have it here. Now, why does it look like this? Well, let's go back to HTML. Let's go to our HTML. And well, the HTML, let me just make this a little bit different size here. The HTML says the game, there's a bunch of spaces, and then made by Greg DeWise. Well, that's this, the game, then there's a bunch of spaces, and then there's made by Greg DeWise. So it's okay, but the styles are not applied. Why aren't the styles applied? Well, the styles, we import the file that defines the styles here. But notice that the name of the file is game.css. Well, in this folder, there is no game.css. There's only cps.css because we renamed it. So you have to rename this to say, no, don't bring game.css, bring cps.css. Save. Refresh, and we get the silly pop-ups, which we're going to get rid of. And yes, it looks now good. So please go ahead, change this from game to CPS, and come back when you're ready. Now, as we start building the clicks per second counter, let's go back to our game design. If you remember, we had this whiteboard where we kind of we're looking at how the game's going to look like. We've built the header. We've made this made by Greg DeWise. Now, you know what? Before we do that, maybe we should see how clicks per second, other clicks per second tester counters work. So why don't we open a page for something with clicks per second? So if I search for clicks per second, one of the first hits I get is something like this. So clickspersecondtest.org, and it tells me click here to start playing. Okay, So I do that and I click, and it gives me a timer, and it gives me a number of clicks, and it tells me how well I did. Not very well, apparently. So we're not going to make it as sophisticated as this in the first sort of phase. So what maybe the first thing we should do is maybe we should just simply create an area where somebody can click, and at least we'll be counting the number of clicks they've done. How about that? So let's go back out to our design and let's design. So maybe let's do it like this. Maybe we want to have like an area that says click me. Oh no, you know what? I don't want it. I can't further this. Click me. And on top, why don't we start with saying the number of clicks you get? So clicks, and then we'll say 10, 11, whatever the amount of clicks you got. Okay, so this is our game design. Now let's try to implement this. So going back to our code, to our HTML page, and of course we have all these alerts that we built last time. So let's get rid of that. Let's get rid of that. So I'm going to erase this, but I'm going to leave the script blocks because we're going to need them. So let me save and make sure I didn't mess up anything. So okay, it seems to be okay. Great. So go ahead and do that and come back when you're done. So we want this area here, this big area here in the middle that says click me. Some kind of a box, I guess, right? Well, we know that we can get boxes using this div tag. Let me make it small so it doesn't look so ugly. So maybe what we want to do here is put a div tag, and maybe we can make that clickable. So let's try that. So I'm going to say div, and I'm going to close the div, and I'm going to say here click me. I'm going to save, and again refresh, and yeah, I have click me. But you know what? I have the click me. I have a bunch of spaces here and no spaces here. So maybe what I want to do is I want to copy these line breaks and put them here. That way the click me will be kind of in the middle. So let's save, refresh, and yeah, it's kind of in the middle. So go ahead and do that. You want to add these, you want to add this line, and then copy the line breaks from above. So it should look like this. You should add these two lines. Come back when you're ready. I probably want this to, to have a border. Let me look at my game design. So in the click me area, I kind of wanted to have a border. I kind of want to be centered, probably big. So why don't we try to do that using the CSS style sheet? See if we can make it look something like that. So, well, I know that I can style it. I can style this div if I give it a particular ID. So I'm going to give it ID, and maybe we'll just say click me. How about that? And I'm going to save that. And then I'm going to go to CSS file, and I'm going to say style a div with an ID called click me. Okay, and I'm going to do this. And well, I know I can do a border, so I remember this. This is not something you will remember off the top. It's not something you can figure out. It's something you kind of have to, you will remember it once you do it a few times. But you can do a border by saying border, semicolon, and then you say three things: color, style, thickness. So I'm going to put style will be solid, color would be, say, black, and thickness 1 pixel. That's as thin as it can be. And maybe I'll say 3 pixels. Okay, and look, it's underlining this in green. What's it saying? It says soid is not a valid value for the border property. And of course, because I misspelled, I should have said solid. And now there is no squiggly brackets, little squiggly lines. So again, use the tools that Visual Studio gives you to make your coding easier. So let me save this file, come back here, refresh, And voila, we do have a thick black border. Now, before you implement this, just let me tell you one little thing. What if I made a mistake? Click, something like that. I misspelled that. And then I saved it. I came here and, well, there is no border. How can I do that? How can I sort of find out if, how can I fix this if I didn't notice that this is what happened? Well, what I would normally do is I would go to the HTML and I would take this ID. I wouldn't try to write it. What I would try to do is I would try to copy it. I would copy, then I go to the CSS file, I double click this and it highlights the entire name, right click, paste. That way I'm sure I didn't make a silly mistake when I was typing. So I click save, come back here, refresh, and everything works again. So go ahead and do that. The very first thing I would like you to do is, let me take a screenshot of this. Make sure there's a space, add the ID, click me, make sure you say ID equals, quote, click me, quote. Make sure you add that to the HTML. Come back when you're done. Then you need to go to your CPS CSS and add this directive. Again, I want to style a div with an ID named click me. Then I do open squiggly bracket that's next to the P, to the right of the P key, and I say border, colon, solid black 3 pixels, semicolon to finish. Do that please and save, refresh, and make sure it looks like this. Come back when you're done. However, this is not yet looking the way I would like. If I look back at my design, I kind of want it to be green and, you know, a nice border, etc. So I could be adding the styles here, trying to get it to look right, and then saving and refreshing, etc. But there's an easier way to experiment. What I can do is I can make this full screen, and remember how I can right click and say inspect. But when I come here and I click on this click me, sounds funny. If I look here to the right, it actually tells me, see it says styles. So it's saying that it knows about this border. And I can uncheck this and the border is gone. I can change it. So I can click here and it says black and I can say red. And all of those changes will be live. So I can play around with this to get it, to kind of see what I like. Now, of course, if I refresh, remember I told you before, it's going to be gone. This is not actually saving in our file. But it does allow me to experiment with something. So for example, let's just say I want the border 1 pixel. Is that looking better? Nah, maybe how about 2 pixels? Okay, a little better. And maybe I want, what I can do, actually, I can actually click here at the end and I can actually add more styles. So what if I want to put a background color? So I remember it's a background and see how it lists all the different options that there are, just like in Visual Studio. So I can see, aha, background color. Look, I have background image. Ooh, I can put an image for a background too. Lots of interesting things. In fact, we're going to use that eventually. But anyway, let's just do background color. Whoops, it went away. Background color. I'll click it. And I can now, semicolon, I can give it whatever color I want. So I'm going to put green. I'm going to put forest green. Kind of a forest. How about forest green? Okay, that's pretty good. And now the black on the green doesn't look so good. So maybe I'll say color. Again, I know that color changes the color of the text. And maybe I'll say white. Okay, that looks a little better. Maybe I want to say larger. Font size. Extra large, maybe large. Whoops, no, I don't want that. I want extra large. Okay, that may not be bad. So I can play with this and kind of get it to look like the way I want it. Of course, if I refresh, I will lose it all. So go ahead and do that. Again, go to your edge, right-click, inspect, and play around, see if you can get it to look like this. But please try to keep this very close to what I'm doing. Don't experiment too much at this point. Come back when you're done. Now again, if I refresh, I'll lose it. But what I can do is I can highlight. I can just highlight everything, then press Control C to copy, Control C to copy, and I can then go to my Visual Studio and just right-click and paste, and I have everything that I did. So go ahead and copy the style from here and paste it into here. If for some reason you lost the styles in Edge Developer Tools, that's fine. Just type this all in and come back, actually all of this. Come back when you're finished. And remember, if you make one little change, then things won't work. So you got to be very careful. Watch for the green squiggly lines that tell you something doesn't seem to be right. Be careful for the semicolons to make sure you have all of them. And if something's not working, then you have to check character by character. You have to compare to what I have, what you have to what I have. So let's save this, Control S. I'm going to close Developer Tools, and I'm going to refresh. And oh, look, the style maintained because I have it here in the actual file. Great. Let's finish it up. What else do we want? We probably want the click me to be centered. Well, we've centered this, we've centered that, so we know how to do this. Remember, developers, we are lazy. So we don't want to remember how to do it. We want to remember where we did it before. And well, I know the footer is centered, so I remember that, aha, text alignment center, that does it. So I'm going to copy and Control V or paste, save, refresh, and I got that. So go ahead, make it centered, come back when you're ready. Next, we probably want that area, the green area, a little bit bigger, maybe height-wise. Well, what can we do? Well, I said height, so maybe there's something called height. And yes, there is height. Specifies the height of the content area, padding area, border area. That's a lot of reading. I gotta tell you that CSS styling gets very, very, very complicated, and kind of actually have to learn a lot to know how to do it well. So for now, just hang in there and just follow my lead. When you try to do your own things, you might find yourself get confused very quickly. That's kind of normal. So don't get frustrated. If you do something that you don't know, revert back to what you had and then start over. But anyway, I know that height allows me to specify how high an object is, how tall, or so I don't know, maybe I'll try 100 pixels. Save that, Control S. I think it's pretty cool. So go ahead, do that now. Add a height, refresh, save, refresh, and make sure it's okay. Come back when you're ready. Next, I don't like the fact that this click me is floating, so to speak, to the top. It should be here in the middle. So how to center this click me vertically? Well, we know that there's something called text align center. And you might be tempted to look for something like vertical align. Okay, what does it say? Central. Okay, see if that works. But it doesn't work. It doesn't do it. So there's actually, this is actually one of those examples of things that are difficult to do in CSS. Some things like background color, are very intuitive. Other things like text align or centering vertically is actually not so easy. But let's go to our trusty W3 school and see what it can show us. Let me open another tab and go to W3 schools. Go here. Maybe I'll make it large screen. And I can search. Let me say center text in a div vertically. And let's see, what can we learn? Oh, how to center an element vertically. So let me go here and look at that. Oh, look at I am vertically and horizontally centered in a box, green box. In fact, that's exactly what we need. So we can actually see how that's done here. So in fact, look, they give me the styles and the HTML how to do it. Perfect. So, but this is a little bit different, you see. This is actually a div inside a div. I'm showing you something which is difficult because I want you not to be frustrated when you try to do something on your own. So this is not exactly what we need because we just have a text inside one div. So this is a bit more complicated. So maybe search something else. How to center text in a div text vertically. I didn't misspell it. I didn't. Oh, good. The horizontal and vertical alignment. How to center them vertically. Vertical align. Okay, why don't we try this one? So we have a lot of different things. One is center align text. Text align center. So we've done that. What else is there? Image, we don't care about that. Line position, declare fix hack. And what I want to show you is this is what we're going to be using, line height. It's something that's the easiest. But as you can see, look how many different ways it's to do this. So HTML and CSS, some things are just not easy. But I'm going to do using line height, center vertically using line height. And what we have to do is when we set up a height of an object, we have to set up the line height to be the same. And line height is the height of the text inside. So even though text is small, technically the one line of text is actually 200 pixels. It's like when you write an essay and you have to double space it. So, you know, each sentence is higher, the same thing. So it's a line height that we want. So let me close that, get rid of this, and go in here and type in line height, line dash height. Okay, there it is, tab, colon, and it has to be the same thing as height, so 100 pixels. And Control S to save, F5 to refresh, and yes, I think we got it. What's next? Well, we probably don't want it to be so wide. That clicked me. Maybe we want it to be like halfway through the page. Well, how to do that? Again, it's one of those things that requires a bit of a trick. And let me expand this. Oh, before we go there, please go ahead, add this line height, and make sure that your page looks like this, and then come back when you're finished. Okay, so assuming that your page looks similar to this, let's make this larger, and let's inspect it. Right click and inspect. And here. So when you actually look at this weird kind of a box, and that's something called a CSS box model. As you can see, you kind of like move, and there's these different colors, etc. So every element in HTML has a size. And as you can see, I highlighted it, and it highlighted the whole click me. Let's just watch the left. See, it's saying that its width is 678, that's how wide it is, and its height is 100. Well, I'm not surprised that the height is 100 because that's what I set it to. But I didn't set that 678. So what is that 678? Well, by default, a div will be as wide as the screen. So this screen is simply 678. And in fact, if I take this and I make it smaller, look at the number here. Now it's 588. It actually becomes smaller and smaller. Look at this. Smaller, 576, etc., etc., etc. It goes very, very small. And I can make it very large too. So this tells me the height of the dimensions of the div element. And the div element also has something called padding. We're not going to talk about that. It has a border, and the border is 2 pixels, and it has a margin. What is a margin? Well, margin is space around it. And right now the margin is dash, which means 0. But I could set the margin to be some number, which means there will be a space between this side and the right side of the div. So let me try to add this. Let's say margin right, and I say 50 pixels. Look at that. Now, if I move a mouse here, see how it says 50 and then it highlights this area in kind of orange? Take a look. See? That means that we set the margin to be 50. So go ahead, do that now too. Right-click on your Click Me, choose Inspect, and then add a margin of 50 pixels, and then see how this thing works. Come back when you're done. So if we have this, this margin allows us to kind of like put this, allows us to kind of center this. If I put a margin on the left, then this thing could be could be centered. So let me add another one, margin left, and about 50 pixels. Okay, that's pretty cool. I think we're getting there. Maybe I'll say, you know what, this Click Me is, okay, maybe how would I make it like this? Okay, now this Click Me is still, in my opinion, this whole area is still too big. So maybe I want to put the margin to be something like 150. Okay, whoops, 150 and 150. Don't worry about doing that, just follow along. And okay, maybe a little bit smaller, maybe 250. 250. Okay, that's pretty cool. But what happens if I make this page smaller? Well, if I make this page smaller, Click Me becomes small and small to the point of disappearing, and that's not good. Why is that? And the reason why it's happening is because we set this margin. See this margin here? This orange area? This area here and this area here has to be 250 pixels. But it made sense when the page is very large, because 250 pixels is kind of makes sense here. But when a page is very small, and imagine if you're watching this, if you're using it on the phone, then it doesn't make any sense. So there's another trick in CSS that rather than specifying the size explicitly, saying how many pixels, we can say percentage of whatever the window is. So what if I said 25%? And I put here 25%. What this will do is that the browser will calculate the width of the page, and it will always leave 25% here and 25% on the side. So if I make it very small, it's much, much nicer now. And if I make it very large, it's also much nicer. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to select these. I'm going to Control C, and I'm going to paste them here. And I'm going to get rid of this vertical central because it doesn't work. So go ahead and add this to your CSS, and then make sure that your page looks something like this. And come back when you're finished. What's next? Let's look at our design again. Okay, so what's different? Well, this is like a box with like square corners. Maybe let's make the corners round. Now, how to do that? Well, again, let's go to our trusty W3 schools. And let's search. So how about make corners round? Does that work? Let's see. CSS rounded corners. How to create round buttons. How to create round images. You know, I think this rounded corners, let's check that out. So I'm going to click here. And guess what? That's exactly what I want. Rounded corners. Okay, so there's different ways of doing it. And in fact, in W3 School, there is this thing called try it for yourself. And I would really encourage you to do this. If I click try it for myself, it gives you a mini HTML file. See, this HTML is here, the body, right? And it gives you a bunch of, actually they're using a p tag rather than div, but it doesn't matter, same thing. And for example, rounded corners 1, and they specify rounded corners 1. They said style an element with an ID rounded corners 1. And what they do, well, they set up a background, width, height, but they set up this thing called border radius. And I bet you that's what it is. So I'm going to maybe do border radius of 1, and I'm going to run. And look at that, it's almost square. So I'm assuming if I increase that number 50, it will be better. Okay, so go ahead. I'm going to save this URL, and it will be available in the comments. You'll see it in the video. And I would like you to go here, try it for yourself, and play around with it. I want you to get comfortable with it. If for some reason you're not able to get the link from the comments, then go to 3wschools.com and type what we typed. Oops. How to round corners. I can't remember why do I keep saying this? Corners. And search. And the very first thing that comes up is CSS rounded corners. And try it yourself. So go ahead, come back when you're finished. Okay, so I know it's border radius. I'm going to close this and I'm going to implement it in our file. So close that. I'm going to hide this and I'm going to say, what was it? Corner radius? Oh my goodness, I forgot. Let me go back. I actually have to border radius, and why don't I say 25 pixels, I believe, pixels, right? Let's see, save. I'm gonna come back here. I'm gonna close this developer tools and I'm going to refresh. And you know what? I'm starting to think it's pretty cool. I'm starting to like this. Okay, maybe I don't want the border. What about this? Does it look better without the border? So let me get rid of the border, save, refresh. Yeah, I think it looks better without the border. So it's up to you, but if I were you, I would remove the border. And if you want, remove the border, save, and come back when you're finished. Now that we got it looking the way we want it to look, we should be able to click it. And I can click it, it just doesn't do anything. And when we click it, we want to display some kind of a message that says how many times this was clicked. Now, as you can see, when I click on this page, nothing happens. But when I click here, I can edit the URL. If I click this plus, I can create a new tab. If I click this, I can refresh. And how does that work? You see, when you're creating a game with some kind of a user interface, something that shows up on a screen, then everything you do to that screen creates something we call an event. So what is an event? In your life, an event would be you woke up this morning. right? You have a birthday, that's an event. You know, something happened in school that was special or something, that's an event. But there's, of course, boring events like I brushed my teeth, I went to sleep, I had a dream, I woke up, I ate. All these are events. Well, in computers, especially if when we're doing with HTML, everything that happens is an event. When I move the mouse, that's an event. We call it a mouse move event. Okay? Right now, I'm doing lots and lots of events. And the browser, every time I move it just a little bit, recognizes this event. And it can do something when you move. So one thing, for example, is when I move my mouse, the cursor changes location. That happens because the browser recognizes the move event. The browser, for example, recognizes that right now I highlighted this. That was a highlight event. If I click it, if I'm clicking on this, it's also recognizing the event. And it's thinking that what I want to do is I want to select this text. If I click 3 times, then it thinks that I want to select the entire sentence. And that happens because the browser recognizes that I clicked it, and it does something to the click event. In fact, there's many, many events. If I double click it, it's a double click event. If I click and move and let go, it's a drag event. So all of these things, all of these events the browser recognizes. But what we want is we want a click. We want to do something when the click me area gets clicked. So what I want to do, I want to tell the browser is, hey, when someone clicks here anywhere inside the green area, I want to do something special. So let me do that. Let's go back to the HTML file, and we're going to write some JavaScript. So we go to our script tag. So what I want to do is I want to, again, this is going to be a technical term. Don't worry, I know you're not going to understand it right away. But what I want to do is I want to register a custom code for a click event. I want to tell the browser when this gets clicked, run code that I'm going to write. So the first thing we got to do is we got to tell the browser what is clickable. And well, it's this div that is clickable. So I need to tell the browser that I'm interested in a click event for this div. And the way I do that is I type document. And when I say document, I basically tell the code that I want something inside the body. Anything inside the body is a the thing that's inside the body is a document. Now you might wonder, why is it called document? It shouldn't be like web page or something like that. And well, it goes back to the same thing as why are mistakes in code called bugs. And the reason is that HTML was really first designed to be really like a document, like a word editor, something like Word or Google Docs where you type your essay. Well, HTML was kind of designed for that. It was designed for people to write essays and be able to share those essays across the internet. That's why it's called hypertext markup language. It's text, right? Hypertext markup language. It was meant for text. That's why everything inside here is a document, just like you'd be writing a Word document. Anyway, I'm saying document. Then I say dot. And when I say dot, I'm saying that I would like to do something to this document. What do I want to do? Well, I want to find this div. And remember in CSS, let's go back here. When I want to style this click me, I would say, find a div with an ID called click me. And in JavaScript, I have something quite similar. Let me go to HTML. I say document, and I say get, and look, it comes up, get element by ID. I'm not going to finish writing it. I'm just going to go like this. And the reason I don't want to finish writing it, because remember, JavaScript is case sensitive. So if I made a mistake and I put get element small, it wouldn't work. So what I do is I say dot get, and when I see this, I either double click on it But since this is already highlighted, all I have to do is press tab and it's there. Get element by ID, and then I open bracket and I do quotes. That's just the syntax. This is just the way it's done. It will make sense over time. For now, just basically follow this carefully. And inside this these quotes, I'm saying I have to give the name, sorry, the ID of the element that I want. And it's the click me. And in fact, I'm going to double click on this and I'm going to see, okay, if I double click on it, it highlights this for me. So now I know I got the names correct, exactly right. So this, by doing this, it allows me to select a particular element from the document. So now I actually have the element. So if I press dot, now it's telling me everything I can do to this element. So one of the things is, for example, inner HTML. What is that? Inner HTML allows me to set what is inside the div. So let's just say I put inner HTML equals. Now this equals is a little bit weird, so bear with me. What I want to say is something like this. I want to say into the inner HTML of the element click me, put this new text, and I'll say Greg is silly or something like that. So this is kind of what I want to say, but the way we say it in JavaScript, we say equal. What we're saying is make this be the same as that. So put this text into the HTML of the click me element. So what should happen is that this click me should be replaced with Greg is silly when I refresh the page. So let's try it. Let me save the file, refresh, and guess what? Greg is silly. And we're going to be using this this code quite a lot, actually. But that's not what we want to do. We don't want to change the text. We want to do something special when this gets clicked. So what do we do for that? But actually, before we get there, go ahead and implement this. I just want to make sure you get comfortable with writing this. So again, just write this code and be very, very careful about every capitalization. Make sure you get the brackets right. It cannot be this bracket. It cannot be this bracket. It has to be this bracket, which is basically the key number 9. Shift key 9 gives you that. Be very careful about everything. Implement that. Make sure it's working and come back when you're done. Alrighty. So now let's do our click event. The way we do that is, let me just get rid of this, is we say, now that we have this element, this gives us the element div. We want to say, listen, when it gets clicked, do something. And the right code for this is we say add event listener. See how it's here? And again, I'm not going to try finishing typing it. I'm going to simply press tab key and get it open. So add event listener means I'm adding some code that will be run when the event fires. So why is it called the listener? It's because that code kind of waits for this event, right? It listens. Did it happen? Did it happen? Yes, it happened. Okay, let me run. All right, so add event listener, and look how much fun this is. Look at this description. Very, very helpful, isn't it, right? Well, don't worry about it. It's actually very much simpler than this. What I first have to do is I have to first say what type of event. I can say double click, I can say mouse move, but I want click. So I'm going to say click. And then I have to specify the code that's going to be run. So why don't I put Let's try. So what we have to do is we have to create a code block. So let me explain that in a moment. I'm going to say clicked. Bear with me for a moment, please. So bear with me. Let me just run this and show you what it looks like, and then I'll explain it. So let me refresh. And I'm going to try clicking. And look at that. We got this alert. Button clicked. Hooray. If I click it again, again, it's working. Now, why is it working? Let me explain. What I said here is, again, I said, do something when the click event occurs. What do? Well, I want you to run a piece of code which I called clicked. And I create this piece of code by saying function and clicked. This is the name. This allows me to create a piece of code here between these brackets that will only be run when someone tries to run this code by name. I know it's convoluted. Bear with me. I promise you will make sense over time. For now, I'm just trying to explain enough so that you know what's going on. In fact, this clicked is just some name. So I can say Buga, okay? And I have to make sure this is Buga. And I'll save, refresh, and it works. In fact, I can just simply go, I can't do special characters like this, I can only do real. Okay, I can do that. Copy, paste, let's see. And guess what? It works. The reason why is because this is just a name. It could be anything you want. But we try to keep the names so they make sense. So this piece of code here runs when the button got clicked. That's why I called it clicked. It kind of makes sense. I could even say something like click me button was clicked. And I can do that. But again, developers were lazy. This is just too long. So I'm going to say just clicked. And again, I'm going to copy this and I'm going to paste it here to make sure I got it exactly right. And I'll double check by clicking it. Yep, it is highlighting it here. Correct. So go ahead, implement this. Be very careful and make sure your code works. Come back when you're finished. Let's maybe try to experiment with a different event. So you don't have to do this. Just watch. So what if I want to say mouse? Oh look, it tells me what events. Look how many events there are. Mouse leave, mouse move, abort. Wow, that's a lot of events. But I'm going to say mouse move. Okay. So when a mouse is moved over this, do something. Now, what could it be? I'm going to say when the mouse is moved, run a different piece of code. I'm going to say, oops, mouse moved. Okay, ignore this. So I have to copy this code. And I'll make this code, the name of this code is mouse moved. Maybe make this a little bit bigger so we can easier to see. And I'm going to put an alert. Let's say, ouch, don't touch me. Okay, and we'll make sure that I get the names right. Yes, the names are right. So let's save and let's see what that would look like. So now I believe the moment the cursor goes over the click me, it should, yes, don't touch me. There you go. So what's happening here? Can't even get rid of this now. So what's happening here is that there are actually two with two different things that happen. When a button gets clicked, this code runs. When a mouse is moved over a button, then this code gets run. Hope that makes sense. But we can debug it. Whoops. What I can do is I can press F12. So let's go to our source. Let's go to our HTML. And let's put a breakpoint here. And let's put a breakpoint here. So what that means is when the code tries, sorry, when the browser tries to run this code, it will stop. So let's see. I'm going to move my mouse slowly over this thing, and when I do, I should get there you go. We are now paused in a debugger. So the execution of the program is stopped. And we are here in mouse moved. Why? Because we moved the mouse over the button. So that's why we got this. And when I click this icon, that means run this line, I will get a pop-up. And we do. Right, so I hope that makes sense. The last thing I'd like us to do is to publish this into Spaces W3 Schools. So, oops, you don't have to worry about implementing this, so we can get rid of that. This is not unnecessary. I would like you to upload this to our W3 Schools. And the way we're going to do that is, again, I have to open in private window. So you open your browser and go to spaces.w3schools.com and log in. Then go to Learn to Code. And what I would like you to do now is create a new root file. We're going to create two new root files. One is HTML, and we're going to name it CPS, clicks per second. Create a file. So go ahead and do that. Then we'll create another file. This time it's going to be CSS, clicks per second. Why do I keep writing X? CPS, create a file. Okay, there it is. Now I want you to go into, click on the CPS HTML, and here's your editor right here. Go into Visual Studio, Control A to select everything, right click, copy, then go to the editor, right click, paste. Yes, we can do that. Then save. Go ahead and do that. And then we're going to do the same thing for game CSS. So we go to here, and then we go to CPS, CSS, Control A to select everything, copy. Oops, be careful. Go to cps.css, the new file. Come in here, right click, paste, save. Do that. Now click on CPS HTML and make it full screen and click run. And you should now have your game. If I click, I should be getting this message that says the button was clicked. Okay, I will see you in the next video.